Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back. Today we have something we haven't done in a minute here, and it is a first impressions kind of game review for you here. Today we're going to be focusing on Wildgate, a game that has not officially came out and fully launched yet. It is currently in an open beta phase for the next about day and a half as of recording this. It's meant to launch on July 22nd, I believe. The game comes to us from Moonshot Games as well as I believe Dreamhaven Games is the other studio involved. Um, cool little factoid. They are, working with, or I guess it's, he's the lead, is the former, I guess, founder or CEO or like lead at Blizzard. Not Activision or not Activision Blizzard, but Blizzard, the guy who made a lot of the, older games you remember at Blizzard, particularly like old World of Warcraft and classic, or what was just World of Warcraft then, but is now classic World of Warcraft. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, Wildgate, really interesting game. It premiered and was showcased, I believe, a couple or 2 or 3 months ago to the world, and had a lot of trailers, and pushed it out as much as they could. But just had another, I guess, trailer and showcasing at the Summer Game Fest here recently with Xbox. They, you know, launched it into a new open beta phase that we're currently in, and it's been very interesting to see. I was made aware of this just recently, a couple days ago. I've been trying it out a lot since then. That's where the footage you're seeing here is collected. This is also collected through an Elgato HD60X on an Xbox Series X, by the way, if you're wondering. But yeah, it's been a pretty interesting game. It's a really unique concept. One of the more interesting, unique games that we've gotten, at least in the past couple of years, in my opinion. It's a very interesting game, very interesting setting, very unique. I've been enjoying my time with the open beta. I don't think it's absolutely perfect at this point, but again, that's probably what the open beta is for. But that being said, just a nutshell here, or just a quick review on whether I think you should try out the beta if you still have time left by the time you see this, or consider picking this up and following the game to release and after. I absolutely do think you should be following this game and try out the beta if you have time, and very heavily consider purchasing this game because it is a lot of fun. With or without friends, this game has been very interesting to play through. It's been very fun, very engaging experience. I've been trying to play as many games and see as much as I can from it, and I haven't, despite the nature of the game, you might think you get burnt out pretty quickly. Like this is some early game footage, obviously, but you don't really there's a lot of good diversity. It's very fun to play. Short review and first impressions, I like it a lot. It has a lot of potential. I'm excited to see the launch of it and how it does, and what this current state is at launch day when people start playing. It'll be very interesting. I'm definitely going to be following it and probably do a review on it at some point after it releases there. But yeah, very interesting game. Essentially, for those of you who aren't aware of this game at all or anything, the best way to describe it in a nutshell is kind of like Sea of Thieves in space. More particularly, if you remember that like Sea of Thieves arena combat where they dropped you in with a handful of other crews into like a certain sea and had you guys to kind of like duke it out. That's essentially kind of what this is in space. You and 3 other people get put onto this vessel. You're a spacecraft that has weapons and stuff, but also can carry stuff and move and everything. And you get dropped into this arena with what is it? It's three other ships, four including you, I believe. Yeah, I just wanted. For some reason, I thought maybe it was five, but I'm almost positive it's four. Uh, you get dropped in with these other crews and yourself. You get put into this kind of like space realm here, and essentially, what it is it's either one of two things: a fight to the death, or a fight to see who can get the monolith, or not the monolith, but the artifact first onto their ship and escape out of the quote unquote wild gate. Which essentially what a wild gate is, it's kind of just like a space portal thing. It's pretty hard to miss, obviously, and if you play the tutorial, they'll explain it pretty in depth. But yeah, that's the two win conditions: is kill everybody else or escape out of that space portal with the artifact, which is like the really like special kind of loot that you everybody's looking for and everybody wants to get and everything. So obviously a lot of times it turns into, oh well, it's just going to be whoever is left standing, because Once the artifact has been discovered by somebody, and it's usually somewhere towards the middle of the map where everybody can kind of see it and see your ship, and it usually turns into a dogfight. Honestly, I haven't seen many games where people have actually escaped with the monolith, and I personally have never done it. We've always just killed everybody else anytime I've won. But yeah, that's essentially the nutshell of the game. What you do before that is you spawn in and you go to these little abandoned space stations or monoliths or I guess space rocks or sometimes, and you collect resources both for you and your ship, which can range just from like logistical stuff of like ammunition, uh, coolant supplies, and thruster supplies for your ship. It can be upgrades for like movement abilities that you can hold like when you're flying through space for you personally. It can be traps and stuff that you can put on ships, or you can put on other people's ships to do damage to them. And most importantly, really, it can be weapon upgrades for your battle turrets that are on your spaceships that obviously help and give you an advantage over other players when engaging in this like space naval combat, which is the mainstay and more important part of the game, obviously. So that is kind of a brief overview of what Wildgate is essentially. Beyond that, there's PvP obviously, but there's also PvE. Those like abandoned, monoliths and space stations and stuff where you initially go to get resources throughout the game. They're not just empty. There is PvE like monster space alien enemies that you have to work your way through at varying levels of difficulty. Not just how many there are, but also just like how hard they hit and how hard it is to get through without dying. So yeah, it's a lot of interest. It's PvE, PvP, very interesting arena kind of space combat shooter. It's very fun. The concept of the game is really good. Despite this being really the only main game mode, it doesn't really ever get tiring. At least not my experience in the open beta here, because there's a lot of diversity. There's 4 different ships options you can choose. There's a handful of different, I guess, operators or like character and classes you can choose from that all have different like abilities and specs and stuff. There's, again, a handful of different weapons and attachments and gadgets you can bring along on your person. Each new game is its own thing, where it's like it's a new game of are they going to escape with the artifact? Is it going to kill everybody? What type of upgrades and resources and stuff are we going to get when we spawn in at this places we go to? So there's a lot of change, randomness, variety, and diversity here that keeps it interesting no matter how many games you play. And of course, if you're playing with friends, I mean that's a given. If you're playing with friends in a bad game or a good game, it just makes it a better experience overall. And I think this game really suits that pretty well. But let's get into like the nitty gritty of it here. I think it's pretty good. Obviously, it's an open beta. I don't think the game is perfect. Like I mentioned with some of the systems in this game, I think in particular the weapon balance is a little questionable in my opinion. You see some of the weapons throughout the game, like the sniper rifle there, and then you saw my secondary, which is like this honing missile pistol that doesn't miss. The guns are a little imbalanced. That the secondary I'm using right here seems to be the best gun in the game right now. It's kind of like a pistol or handheld gun that auto tracks enemies and like locks onto them, and they can't escape it really unless it like hits something that they're being covered by first. So you don't have to aim really. It does a good amount of damage, high rate of fire. This seems like the most diverse and best weapon to use at the moment, regardless of the situation, really, unless they're incredibly far distance combats. Then maybe the sniper is good. But in my experience, most of the combat, especially either PvE or PvP, is at short to medium at most range, just because it's space. There's a lot of empty void to be filled there, and that's where mainly when you're engaging that, that's where mainly your ship's battle cannons come in, and you can attack players and ships with that, and that's mainly the gap that fills. In actual combat, I use the sniper rifle in this, but I've actually found little use case for the sniper rifle in most cases. Honestly, it just isn't that good. And the assault rifle they have is fine too. I think does a good like medium range engagement, and it's okay. But really, most of the time, that secondary weapon that kind of locks on the people is mostly what you're going to be running if you want to play quote unquote meta or something. But yeah, I think the gun balancing will get worked out by the time the game actually launches. You can obviously nerf and buff stuff and tweak stuff. You can add new guns and add stuff, or take stuff out and remove stuff from the game. So that's what an open beta is for. So I'm interested to see how they kind of balance that and handle that. But I think it'll be fine if they just tweak it around a bit there. That's my impressions and feelings, anyways. But we'll see. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure. Uh, then going to the next major component and like I guess combat system of the game is the ships themselves. Obviously, the ships seem to have something of a hierarchy. Essentially, there's 4 different types of ships you can be selected to use in this game. Each of them are supposed to bring something else, some advantage and weakness to the table. Like there's the ship you see me on is usually like the balanced ship that kind of does. It's a jack of all trades, kind of does everything okay. There's that ship. There's like the battleship, which is like the real space naval combat ship that you'll see in the game, where it's like, oh, it's got guns all over the ship facing every direction that you want. I think the doors also, can't be opened from the outside by enemy players. If you don't want, like, it's a very space combat ship, but it's bigger. It's a bigger target. I don't think it moves as fast. And then you got the ship that's smaller, more fragile, but the speed and like maneuverability is a lot better and stuff. So it's like it's one of those things. And then you have the thing that can haul more and carry more, and is logistically speaking better. And it's like that's it's kind of like the galleon and this coming back to the Sea of Thieves remarks. It's like there's different types of ships for different types of reasons. This time it's just not crew size; it's just what it brings to the table versus the others. But in my experience, the balance ship has been pretty good. I mean, I haven't had too many problems using it. The big, battleship is pretty good as well, just because, I mean, naval combat and ship-to-ship combat is a massive part of this game. And having it so they're never out of your sights, you have more guns to use. There's never a point where one of your crew members can't shoot. You always have a gun facing them. And, I believe that is the one with the doors being locked and everything. It is a big advantage to naval combat, which is a massive part of the game, obviously. Obviously, as you can see, you can kind of glide and fly through space here. That's another part is person-to-person combat. Whether it's some people trying to come to your ship or going to a space station like this that's getting resources, or more importantly, they're trying to board your ship, which is a massive part of this game. Not just this ship-to-ship combat, but boarding, kind of like in Sea of Thieves. You can get on the enemy ships, kill the opponents. You can, sabotage the ship and damage the ship, which obviously, fucks with them and makes it a lot easier to destroy the ship. So yeah, boarding and space-to-space combat is the 2 main factors you're going through here. Especially in PvP mines, PvE, it's all just person to person as you like land on like an asteroid or something and have to kill some enemies, which you've seen here. But yeah, that's the mainstay of the game. Like I said, I think the balancing from the ships is okay. I expect them to tweak that or add a little more. The weapon balance needs some work, but overall, I think it worked okay. I will say something about the death timer. You get back in, what is it, like 10, 12 seconds or something. It does seem a little short, and you have to constantly be killing people, and you can't do much if you have a successful board, it seems like, before they're backing at you. So maybe that needs extended a little. I think, yeah, but overall, this game is a very solid, very stalwart game where it's very solid. I think there's definite balance changes that need to be tweaked with and experimented with at launch and over time. Like any kind of FPS, PvP shooter like this that can have that aspect to it. I think that's the main thing that they're trying to find with the open beta, and hopefully they find that data they were looking for by the time it ends and everything comes back to them and everything. But I think that's the main thing that needs to be tweaked with. But apart from that, this game I found very enjoyable. It's a very unique, very fresh game. It doesn't get old. It's really good to play with friends. It's fun. The concept is really good. I think the combat itself, especially the ship-to-ship combat, is fun. I think the different, weapons you can unlock for your person, different weapon upgrades you can find for your ship are really fun to use and everything. I do enjoy, experimenting with that or seeing what I get in this game. One thing that I will say is it's a bit weird when you're especially solo queuing, where you can't necessarily pick your ship 100%. You say what ship you have prefer, and you can only prefer a ship if you have it unlocked, and then it's like whatever the majority of the team prefers is what you're rolling with. So if you're playing solo queue, you're kind of at the whim of like what fucking ship am I going to be on? But if you're playing with friends and you guys have them unlocked, it shouldn't be a huge problem. But yeah, overall, I think this game is it's been a lot of fun. I think it's definitely something you should follow. One thing I do like, I will say this is probably just because it's in a beta at this point, but there isn't like a ton of microtransactions or really any microtransactions being shoved down my throat. The game isn't pay to win, obviously, because of that. There's that is a big plus for me. The game isn't it's free for the beta and the demo here, but from my understanding, it is not going to be free to play upon release unless you have like Game Pass or something, obviously. But then I mean you're paying for Game Pass, obviously, so it is what it is. But for people purchasing it outside of subscription services like that, they said it was going to be about a mid-range price. So don't expect this game to obviously be a AAA game where you're seeing an 80, 70, $60 price tag on that or anything like that. But don't expect it to be free or $5 or $10. I'd say this is maybe a $20 game, maybe a $30 game, where somewhere in that ballpark is where you're probably going to be expecting, which I think is reasonable under a certain few conditions. I think it's reasonable if they don't make the game pay to win, don't make the game microtransaction heavy, don't make it where we have a bunch of season passes, we have a ton of microtransactions, cosmetics are pay to win, either of them pushed down our throat, and the shop's a big thing. I guess if they want to do cosmetics, they can maybe work that in, I guess, but honestly, I prefer not, honestly. But yeah, that'd be my thought on the matter, honestly. Just kind of, leave it be there, especially if I'm already paying for the game for a one-time purchase. Don't make me buy or even try to entice me or anything with a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, if the game comes out in a really good state, people, gets a lot of attention, so the player base is good, which the player base for the beta seems pretty good. Didn't have any trouble finding any games in pretty reasonable amounts of times, like short amount of times. So the player base for the beta anyway seems pretty good since they had the trailer and the showcase and everything. People are becoming more aware of it in videos like this, of course, and hoping that it is cross-platform across like PC and Xbox and PlayStation, I believe, as well. So that's a big help as well. But yeah, I think people are becoming much more aware of it, which is really nice. I expect at least within the first few months of this game for it to be popular, people to try it out, the player base to be really healthy and big and strong. Especially, I mean, I can see this being a game where streamers pick it up. That's kind of a double-edged sword. It gets really popular and a lot of attention and stuff, but eventually it kind of dies down and it dies off. But my expectations it'll be a popular game upon release, really big player base, and then it'll kind of teeter off towards the end or towards the end of like the year that's released. And it'll go into somewhat like if you know Deep Rock Galactic, where it has a smaller but sizable enough community that's very loyal and committed to it. That's would probably be my roadmap and expectations for this game if I had to guess. But it is a really interesting, unique, small little game here. It is a lot of fun. I encourage you to try out the beta and follow it along and see if you want to buy it when it does come out officially, especially if it's in a good state from the beta, of course, and the price is reasonable. I definitely recommend this game and following it along because it is really fun and interesting concept. But yeah, that about does it for this one. Just kind of wanted to talk about that game just because it has been a really interesting, unique experience and wanted to shine a light on this because I do really think it is a good game, honestly speaking. But yeah, that's about it for it. Let me know if you have any questions or what your thoughts on this game are or anything in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video and the channel, I encourage you to like and subscribe. It definitely helps out a lot. And yeah, I'll see y'all in the next one.